I don't know if we're still allowed to call it Aspen updates in an instant, but it's not really very instantaneous anymore. So maybe we need a new name. Let me share release notes and my screen. All righty. Yeah, we've got lots of great stuff this time. So some of this was 24.10.10. A lot of this, there was a 24.10.01 with just a couple little bug fixes, and then a 24.10.10. A lot of that was for work sponsored by CleveNet for their go live. And before I start talking about any of the functionality, I do want to, of course, thank all of our contributors. We have a lot in this release cycle. So there were the contributors to 24.10, 10, and then 24.11. So lots of great contributors. Thank you, everybody, for contributing. We're also starting to call out people that are doing extra testing. So there were additional callouts in 24.10, as well as people are starting to test 24.10.10, and we'll keep updating those as we go along. Last time I also, so I'm going to go back to release notes for 24.10.10. And last time I forgot to demo some work that Miranda had done. So Miranda has updated our API documentation so that there is a complete interface for it. So we're starting to add documentation to those, but now there is an interface that is accessible. So if you go to whatever your URL is /API/documentation, you can see all of that. And right now it's just some user API stuff, but starting to document how to use it, what it does, how to call it, and we'll expect that to keep improving as time goes on and people have time to work on it. So great stuff that Miranda is doing for that. All right, let's get back to 24.10.10. I'm going to talk about two different things that CleveNet sponsored for development. So cloud source integration, as well as using the Symfony APIs to do self-check. I'm not going to demo the self-check for Symfony APIs. We kind of saw that last time with Sierra. It's basically the same thing, but now in Lida, if you are on Symfony, it will use the APIs rather than zip connections, which just helps to make sure that all of the checkouts are credited to the correct location, and that test page will work as well. So under the self-check settings, you can now see that there is the list of items that support item location. So based off where the item currently is when it is checked out, it's going to credit that location. You can also choose the library catalog that's being used or the patron's home location, I believe, are the two other ones. Yes, this is being recorded. The next thing is cloud source. So with cloud source, we have the option to repeat in cloud source. Cloud source is another tool to get articles. Cloud source OA is one of the collections, which is an open access collection. I did link in the release notes to information about cloud source, but it's got great information that is now more easily accessible. So right now it is just listed in the drop-down list. So where it says in library catalog, in online collection and lists, et cetera, there's now an in cloud source. If we do a search for like solar panels, or panels, let's stop that and go to panels. So we're going to link over into cloud source OA for CleveNet's instance, and we're going to get all of our results. So that shows up nicely. And then they can either continue searching there. So if I wanted to search for, I don't know, heat pumps or something, I could do that search there as well. Can always go back into Aspen and change my search as well. But we just wanted to improve that improve access to that information. So those were the big changes. Thank you again to CleveNet for sponsoring those changes. Then for 2411, we've got lots of good changes as well. I'm going to skip over Lita. Jordan's going to demo that later. So the first thing I'm going to call out is for indexing updates. Based off feedback from the catalogers group, they chose to update how CD plus book format was determined. So it is trying to avoid marking things as CD plus book if it's a booklet, not a book, because all of those inserts that go in CD. And then we also added a new format for Zines, which is really cool. So those were generated from the catalogers group again. Also added, this is a cool feature. So as we were finding libraries with very, very large user bases, lots of reading histories, regenerating some of the historic cost savings was just taking a while and timing out. So we got that report from a couple of things. We added a new functionality to make that better, so it recalculates in the background. So I'm just going to click Recalculate Historic Cost Savings here. And that's going to regenerate them all. So we do that. We get this message then that we both started and finished the background process. So in this case, it's a smaller server. So it went through, we started the background process. It's done already. We already finished it. We can go check on our background process here. And it says, hey, here's what we did. We updated total cost savings for 4 users. For 4 users, it's really, really fast. Once you have 10,000 or 100,000 users, it takes a lot longer. So nice way to go through and kind of do that in the background. That right now works for recalculating those cost savings. It also works for generation of test reading history. And then we'll talk later, we've also got a way to generate some test users as well. So those long-running background tasks can now be pushed into the background, which is nice, but still initiated from the front end. Also some work that Nashville did on the masquerade flow. So we've gotten some feedback that people wanted the masquerade flow to stay where they were. The idea being that, hey, I'm helping a patron with something. I need to log in with their account. I want to stay where I am instead of immediately going to their account. So here I've just done a search for dog, and I'm helping myself in this case. So I'll put in my barcode. So we stay here. We can see now that this is on hold for me. I'm going to place a hold on Dog Mama and go into that. So our hold is placed successfully. I'm going to go check their hold, help them with that, be able to do whatever else I need to do for them. Now, the other cool thing that Nashville came up with, and this is James at Nashville did this, is when you finish, so I'm going to end my masquerade, you go back to where you started. So the idea being, hey, I'm working on something, patron comes up to the desk, says, hey, I need help with whatever, masquerade as them, go do what you need to do, end the masquerade, come right back to where you were. So really cool functionality there. Should be really useful. Nashville's also using this with their student report. They've got some custom reports that they've done within Aspen. So the idea is that they've got a report of students, and I don't know if Brian or James is here that can explain more exactly what it does. But the idea is that it is a launch pad for them to start helping students as you get a whole bunch of students coming up to the desk checking things out. So very cool for them and all of us. So next thing I want to talk about is support for multiple overdrives. And this is functionality sponsored by Panhandle Public Library Cooperative. So the idea now is that, hey, instead of each library only having one overdrive collection, you can have multiple. So for them, they have access to these two, so the Florida Panhandle Libraries Libby Collection and the Nephlin Libby Collection. Just as their consortium formed, they originally had one, they then became part of another one, and so they're now able to access both. Their patrons are active in both, and can use both, but it's been really hard because they can only use one. The collections are about the same size, so it's hard to tell. It was hard to decide which one to load into Aspen, but now they can have both. Other cases where this happens sometimes is libraries will have a primary Overdrive collection and then also a collection for like magazines that are provided by the state. So this will support both of those now. As we added this, we also did some functionality to make them easier to administer. We did, because you can now have two different collections, not generally for the same library, but in theory, you could have a collection that is for Libby, then your schools use Sora, probably not simultaneously, but we now have the reader name up at the Overdrive settings level rather than further down. We've rearranged some of these as well. And then because the reader name is up there, we've reverted to calling things Overdrive for some of the settings because that is the service you're using. And then the reader is Libby. This got more complicated too as we started having like LexisNexis and that kind of stuff as well. So people have lots of different reader names for them, and also specifically called out the name of the collection. Then we broke up, and down below we have library settings. So these are your settings for how you authenticate with the library versus what records you want to include. So in this case, we just have all records. We have Calhoun. Panhandle has 3 different libraries that each authenticate a little bit differently depending on collection. If you have a kids collection, you could just add a new one that would be, call this our Panhandle Kids. And we could say that that is only includes the kids titles. But we did find that there were a lot of cases where you were entering kind of redundant information in a lot of different places, and we wanted to clean that up. These settings can be administered not only from the Overdrive settings, but also from library settings. So if we go back to our primary configuration and our library system, and I go into that library, we can see down here under our Overdrive settings, we have 2 collections set up. They can or can't have Overdrive Advantage as well, whatever you want. So that's kind of the setup. It's a lot easier to see. We can see we're including all records from Panhandle, all records from Nephlin. If this was a kids collection, we could also say include the kids collection instead. The way that looks then, so let's go to their instance. So this is just a demo instance for them. So I'm going to just do a search for educated here. We'll go back out of the full record view. So here we see now that we get a where is it for our ebooks and our e-audiobooks for Overdrive. This will only show if you have more than one collection. Not super interesting if you only have one collection. So here we can say, okay, this is checked out. Where is this? So we can see, oh, okay, this is, both collections have this. In this case, we've got 9 at Panhandle, 3 from Nephlin. They each currently have 1 hold on them. If we look at the e-audiobook or the ebook, in that case, this is available. It is, again, owned by both collections. In this case, Panhandle owns 6, and I guess all of them are actually available right now. There's 3 holds that will get filled soon. And then, or maybe they're Advantage collections that are on hold for something local. Anyway, and then Nephlin has 1 copy. It is currently checked out. There's no holds on that. If we go and look at these as well and look at the full record view for those, so here's the full record view for the e-audiobook. That information is also included down in the copy details. So we can see that we have the same information. So what's owned, how many are available, how many holds, that kind of thing. If we go back, let's go back to that educated search. I'm going to limit just to ebooks. So here, if we go down and look at like an educated death, that is only available in one collection. Therefore, we're not showing the where is it. And then here we've got an available one. So in this case, it's available in both. The order of those is going to depend on the order that you have them set up for your library. So if you said, hey, we'd rather people check things out for Nephlin, from Nephlin, if it was if it's available in both, we'd rather them go to Nephlin rather than Panhandle. You can set that up, or vice versa. So in this case, it's configured to where it's going to choose Panhandle first. Okay, let's go to Catching Fire. So here's Catching Fire. We can see it's available or it's not available in both. Let's go ahead and place a hold. What Aspen's going to do now, if you have it in both, it is going to do the same thing we try to do with physical materials. It's going to try to get you to the most available copy. So in this case, it is going to say, hey, there's 5 copies available and 2 holds versus 2 copies available and no hold. In this case, they're essentially, there shouldn't be much of a weight either way. So anyway, we're going to place a hold. We're going to get that. When we go to our titles on hold, we're going to see that Catching Fire is checked out. Yeah, in this case, it is checked out to Nephlin because there were no holds on that. So cool way to kind of balance your collections if you have both. And let's do one more. Let's go to Pride and Prejudice. And in this case, this is available. It is only available from one of those collections. So we can borrow that and view our checkout. So hopefully it's really transparent or really kind of behind the scenes to the patron what's going on. They don't have to think too much about where it is. They do get information about what collection it's checked out to. So in this case, we've got Pride and Prejudice checked out both. We've got the audiobook from Panhandle and the book from Nephlin, but patrons then can just go into Libby. They'll see both at the same time. Should be nice and easy for them. Did a lot of work on the background to make sure that all of the returns and freezes and thaws and all that kind of stuff work properly with them both. So, all right. Any questions on that, or we'll move on to the next thing, which is Share It. All right. So Share It is an ILL system from Autographics. It is what is used in Illinois and many other places. Helen Plum sponsored an integration for that. So we'll continue with my solar energy check. So in this case, we've got a combined result. So we can say, hey, in the catalog, we've got a bunch of these things. We have a list, and then here's the information from Find More Illinois. If we click on any of those, we go straight over to their Share It instance where you can place a hold and do that kind of thing. If we go back, we can also find that. So if we just do a search of the library catalog, we can do our search for solar energy. Down at the bottom, we've got more from Find More Illinois. And then we can also search that directly. So if we wanted to do this, we could search for heat pump and Find More Illinois, go straight over and do that search. So great information there. Thank you to Helen Plum. Last thing I want to talk about before I turn it over to Jordan is we did do some updates to the testing functionality. Last time we talked about being able to automatically generate reading histories. We can now also generate users. So test users can be generated. Again, mostly useful for test instances. And when those get generated, we found some lists of common names across the world. So we're generating a first name, last name that go together based off your region of the world. And we're entering those all in. So it also gives us a nice way to test some diacritics and that kind of thing. With that, I can turn it over to Jordan to talk about Lita.
All right, let's get Lita shared. Okay, so you should be seeing Lita now. Grove actually worked with Kirsten on the Lita work that complements the multiple overdrives work that Mark just showed you. So I just kind of wanted to show you what that looks like in Lita. So here I have Mockingjay. Mockingjay is available from both of the Florida collections. So just like you saw in Discovery, you can see both of those here, both of those copies. It is also integrated into the account. So going into checked out titles, I will be able to see both, and you can say see the collection, Florida Panhandle Libraries, both of these. Oh, nope, this one is the Nephlin. You can also, wait, where was I? I was in checked out titles, so we need to go to titles on hold. Give it a second to update, and then you'll see that the collection here is Nephlin and Florida Panhandle. So that work to support Overdrive works now both in Discovery and in Lita. A couple of other things that were done for Lita. Kirsten did some work for self-registration. So self-registration is now available through Lita. I do want to give you a word of caution though, with library apps, or with any apps, with Android and Apple apps, as soon as you offer registration through an app, you have to offer a way to delete that account. So obviously we don't want people deleting their library card account in the ILS, like from Libby, from the app, from Lita. So what it does instead is it deletes all of the Aspen data. So they can delete essentially their Aspen account. Now they can still log into Aspen with their library card because it'll still validate against the ILS, but any lists that they've saved, all of their reading history, anything that happens to be stored in Aspen will be gone at that point. So if you're considering setting that up, just keep in mind, it requires that the user be able to delete their account as well. And that's not functionality that happens in Aspen Discovery. So, you know, think about whether you want your users to be able to do that. They won't be able to get any of that information back. The other work that Catherine did is improvements to the linked accounts pages in Lita. And that's just to show the library name and the logo for different linked accounts. So those are the updates I have for Lita. There are a few more bug fixes if you check out the release notes. And that's it.